Hey everyone, welcome to the NNN Community Hangout. I'm your host today, Max. I'm taking over for Bart. So bear with me, as this is my first session we're running. And we've got some fantastic guests today speaking. And I'll get into that and the agenda in a little bit. But just please do keep in mind that we are going to be recording this session. So feel free to keep your camera turned off. If you'd like to stay anonymous, it's no problem. We're just happy to have you here. And please do make sure to mute your microphone. We will have Q&A throughout these sessions, so please do post your questions in the chat and we'll make sure those get answered. This just helps us kind of run a smoother session. And as you're joining, we've got an icebreaker question, which is what's an NNN feature that you recently discovered? Feel free to share in the chat. We're always so curious to hear. Or perhaps something interesting you've built with NNN recently. It could be fun, useful, hopefully both. But yeah, we're always interested in learning what you're building with NNN. And yeah, as I just mentioned, we'll be doing Q&A in between the sessions, so feel free to be sending your questions in during a segment, and then after the segment, we'll have some time for Q&A. And if you have some miscellaneous questions, perhaps they're not related to the talk, feel free to post them. We'll accrue those for the end of the session, and we'll answer as many of those as we can with the time. So we'll just wait another minute here. I can see some people joining from the queue. And as we're waiting to kick off, maybe another 60 seconds, again, what's a feature in NNN that you've recently discovered that you found useful? It's always useful for us to know. And then let's just check the lobby. Let's see. All right, well, we've got 24 of us joined already. So I think we can kick off, at least let you know what the agenda for today is going to be. So we have two guest speakers today. We've got some very interesting use cases from our guest speakers. One's from the United Nations, and they're going to be presenting some interesting programs or some interesting things that they're using NNN for there. I won't tease too much now for suspense. And the same from the Brain Tumour Charity. So it's always nice to see NNN doing some good as well, or empowering those who are doing good. And so if we go to the next slide for the more formal agenda, so I'm going to kick it off with some community updates. We've got a few different programs and things happening that we'd like to inform you about. And then Julio from our team is going to kick it off with some updates from the product. We've got some exciting new things that will be happening in NNN. He's going to detail that. And then we've also then got our two talks from the Brain Tumour Charity, and again from OCHA's Humanitarian Data Exchange program, and then a community chat at the end. And just to remind everyone to please post all your questions in the chat. That could be a general question, and we'll group those for the end, or a question about the current speaker that's talking. We'll have a little Q&A segment after each chat is over, or after each talk is over, rather. Okay, so we'll get started with the community updates. And so the first update is about our ambassador program. My colleague Bart has been working on launching. So we're currently still onboarding new ambassadors. After you apply, we'll invite selected candidates for a video interview. We want to make sure there's a good fit there. And then right now we're at 7 ambassadors. So congratulations to all of our ambassadors that have joined into the program. You're our first ambassadors. We're really excited. And we're now at 7, and we're going to get to know them a little bit better on our new, and you can get to know them, sorry, a little bit better on our Meet the Ambassadors page, which is linked here. And Luis has already hosted 2 Zoom Hangouts for our Brazilian community. So congrats, Luis. Thanks for getting that started. And hopefully by the next update, we'll be able to tell you of all the other exciting events and initiatives that our ambassadors are running around the world. So thank you very much to our 7 first, and here's to many more. But yeah, feel free to apply through the link here. It's nnn.io/ambassadors/meet. And then for the ambassadors program, we've got upcoming events. So there's one in Amsterdam near the end of July. Looks like there's not a fixed date for that yet, but on nln.io/community/events, this is our hub for all events. So you can get up-to-dates on those ones and future ones, including these from our ambassadors. And then also in Sao Paulo, in Brazil, we'll have an event on July 8th and the 22nd. Again, through this link, you can get more details on that. And yeah, we're taking applications. One moment. Yeah, so we're taking applications for our ambassador program. So if you think you're a good fit, if you think you have a passion for NNN and you'd like to nurture your local community, then apply. We'd love to hear from you. And the next update from the community is that we've now sending a monthly newsletter. So thanks again to Bart and the team for putting that together. It's got the latest NNN developments, updates from our community, as well as featured workflows from our community, most of which are going to be workflow templates that you can set up yourself and tweak and customize. To start receiving our newsletter, go to nnn.io/newsletter, and the next one should be sent out next week. And so it's just another great touch point to stay on top of all the many things that we're doing or our global community is doing. And the next exciting community update is that we have launched a tutorial hub on our community forum. So you can go over to community.nnn.io. There should be a link on the primary left menu. And here we're aggregating all tutorials in various different languages from our NNN community. So this is not our official NNN YouTube. These are all fantastic videos, be it setup videos and tutorials and how-tos that we are getting from across a global community. We wanted to highlight that because I think a lot of time and effort goes into this sort of content. And so you can go over to community.nnn.io to check that out. And keep in mind that you can, again, select by language. We've just started this, so obviously it's going to grow. And you can also add your own tutorials. So if you're creating content around NNN that you think is relevant in whatever language it might be, you can also submit it to this new repo. And we've also added 2 comprehensive free training courses. We've got the 2-hour basic course and a 1.5-hour advanced course. And this you can find on our YouTube and should also be linked in these slides as well after the session. So those are some very interesting courses. Even if you've already been using NNN for a while, there's some really useful tips in there. And let's see if there's any questions for the community updates. Looks like we've got none for now. If a question comes up, just feel free to ask it in the chat and we can get to it next. And so now it's time for some product updates from my esteemed colleague, Giulio. He's a senior product designer on our nodes team here at NNN. I've personally worked very closely with Giulio and very excited to hear from him on the interesting things that we've been working on in the last month. Giulio, are you ready to present?
Yeah, ready. Can you hear me well?
Yes, I can hear you and I can see you. All we need now, are you going to be sharing a screen as well?
No, we can go through the slides.
Okay, fantastic. All right, so please
Okay,
take it away.
Yeah, it's just 4 slides, so it's going to be quick. Yeah, nice to be here and meet you all, people. As said, I'm a designer in the Nodes team, and today I want to show you a few things that we've been working on lately or just released in the latest few weeks. It's not everything that we added to NA10, but some of the things that I like the most. So kind of a little biased list here. So we can move to the next slide, starting from the first one. We improved the input panel, the user experience in the input panel. And we've observed in our usability testing and talk with our users that some of our users have problems in using the data from all the previous nodes in their workflows. And so we ask ourselves, how can we help users discover all that chain of data that is available there? And so we did 2 main new features, 2 main improvements here. For the JSON and table input panel, you can see there we moved the input drop-down more inside the panel, and we also added the icons of the previous nodes. So it's more evident, it's more visible that this is the list of the previous nodes that you have in your workflow. And for the schema view, we did a more important update there, because now in the schema view, you don't only have the list of the fields available in the previous node, but you have the fields of all the previous nodes in the chain. So we have a very higher visibility of all the data that is available in that node that is coming from all the previous nodes in the chain. So hopefully this will really help you guys and our users to access all the available data in N8N more easily, and probably we hope that will make things easier. We are using it already and we are happy with it, so hopefully you will be happy of this new stuff too. Next slide. Autocomplete. Okay, we've been working a lot on this autocomplete panel lately. You probably already noticed some stuff. We kind of improved the overall UI here. We introduced examples. We create a more like IDE experience, if you want, so more close to what we see in other softwares. And lately, what we've been doing in the last couple of weeks, we added more methods and descriptions and examples. So we keep improving the documentation that you can access in the autocomplete panel. And also now the autocomplete is available also when you hover with a mouse on a method, and also when you are in the cursor between the parentheses. Okay, so it's not just available while you are typing and you have the whole autocomplete window, but if you want to check the documentation of any method there, you can just hover with your mouse on the method and you will have the autocomplete there appearing and telling all the information about that method. Next one. Yeah, this is also something that was highly on demand from our user base. So we finally introduced the Slack trigger node. So it's available already. It supports a bunch of events. More importantly, it supports the event of when a message is sent on a Slack application. And yeah, it's there. Just check it out. Check all the available methods and let us know if it's good or not. Next slide. And last but not least, we also spent some time on the dark mode, which we see a lot of our users using. When we released the dark mode, we saw a lot of our users switching to dark mode, and we see a lot of screenshots in our community which are dark mode. So we say, okay, we should really spend more time on the dark mode. And what we did, we really made the dark mode darker. So that's what we actually did. So we made the secondary buttons darker. The secondary buttons before, they had a white background, so we're kind of really too much highlighting from the background. So now they have dark background with a white border, so they merge much better with the overall user interface. And we also made the nodes with a dark background. Again, the nodes before, they had a white background, so they were really too much standing out from the interface. They now merge much better with the interface. We also work on some icons. We now have icons for dark mode, and we also improve some other icons in the whole application. Some more work will come with the dark mode. So it's something that is keep going, and we want to improve it in the next weeks as well. This is it for the main product things in the latest weeks. If there is any question, I'm here.
Well, first off, I just want to say thank you for presenting these fantastic updates. I know our users are going to absolutely appreciate all of them, especially I think with the dark mode. I personally was really waiting for those icons to swap, and there's a lot that had to happen on the N8N team under the hood to swap out a lot of icons to make them dark mode ready. So thank you for all that work for making that happen. We're going to see if there's any questions right now. for Julio. Looks like there aren't any at the moment. If one pops in, feel free to post it in the chat and we can get to it later. And for this next section, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the career opportunities at NNN right now, because we're growing. It's actually very exciting. I've had one of my first moments actually at the company where, so it was the new joiner and I wasn't exactly sure what their name was. It's kind of an exciting moment when you're sort of growing and you're getting a lot more bright minds to make this beautiful workflow automation product. So on that note, there's a bunch of new roles that we're hiring for across many different departments, from engineering to product and design, etc. All of our jobs are remote as long as you're in the EU zone. And you can apply over at nn.io/careers. On there, you can also get some details on the various perks that we have. Me personally, I'm a big fan of our open source contribution. So each employee gets 100 euros a month that they get to decide which open source projects they like to support. So it's personally very meaningful to me. I think a lot of us over here at NNN, but it's a fantastic place to work. I've been here for 4 years, and I highly recommend taking a peek if you think you'd like to take on a new challenge, building a loving workflow automation tool. If there's any questions around our careers, again, ask in the chat and we can get to them. But I'd love to get to our presentations so we can give our speakers plenty of time to share their exciting stories and also leave lots of room for questions for those. So again, if there's any questions, just pop them in the chat and we'll get to those. So for our first presentation today, we've got a presentation from the folks over at the Brain Tumour Charity. It's a UK-based charity dedicated to funding research, raising awareness of brain tumors, reducing diagnosis times, and providing support and information with people with brain tumors, their families, and their friends. Today, Ibrahim Karadeg, head of IT and CRM, will be talking about how NNN enables them to make an impact in their very important work. Ibrahim, can you hear me and you ready to begin?
Good afternoon. Max, I can hear you.
Perfect.
You happy for me to start sharing my screen?
Yes, please. Thank you. And once the screen's shared, please, Ibrahim, take us away and let us know what you've been doing with NNN.
Brilliant. Firstly, thank you for this opportunity to be able to present, to talk here. Really appreciate that. And again, to talk about the charity. We love talking about the charity. So my name is Ibrahim Karadeg. I'm the head of IT and CRM at the Brain Tumour Charity. We're a UK-based organization. And some of the things that we do, let's see. So who are we? We're the Brain Tumour Charity. We're the biggest brain tumor charity in the world. And we focus on research and we campaign for better diagnosis, better care for people with brain tumors, but we also provide them support within the charity as well. And some of our values are being community first. So everything that we do should be community first, collaborative, bold, and innovative. The reason why I highlight that is NA10 fits really well into what we do and what we've been able to deliver with some of the projects that we have recently launched with NA10. So why did we choose NA10? From around the time of the pandemic, unfortunately, we had to downsize. So what that meant was the integration related projects to our CRM system, Salesforce, were achieved with, if you will, in any means necessary, within the current skill sets that we held at that particular time, or the tools that we had available. And this meant that there was no documentation, there wasn't any point of reference, and people didn't have confidence in the integration related projects or any automation that we had in place. When we looked at NA10, I looked at it personally. It was a source available solution. It has a community, the training was available, and the documentation was thorough. I ran it personally within my house with a home assistant. But one of the challenges that we've had was we had integration related projects stacking up now. We were a small size team. We were just building the team up. NA10 enabled us to build a proof of concept relatively easily. And on top of that, there are quite a lot of enterprise features like versioning, and you can add multiple users. And right now you can bucket the projects together, and we're making use of two-factor authentication. But there are also like additional features like single sign-on that we want to look into. And what else you guys got? You guys got log streaming that we want to have a little bit more of a play around with, see what that would mean for us. So now, if we were to deep dive into the projects, the Twilight Walk is the Brain Tumour Charity's flagship event. So we do this once a year. It's a 10-kilometer, is it 10-kilometer or 10-mile walk around London, as highlighted on this map. So we did this in 2024 with the use of NA10. We've raised over £400,000, and we've raised great amount of awareness with it. So we did the Twilight Walk previously, we had always sold the tickets via Eventbrite, where people had the opportunity, our community had the opportunity to purchase tickets and also donate money to the charity. But we dealt with that data, we've exported it from Eventbrite, and we processed those tickets manually onto Salesforce, our CRM system. And that took, and it was calculated by our wonderful events team, it took them 8 minutes per ticket. So about, what's that, about 160 hours to process all those tickets. And there was a great value to be had here. There was an opportunity to, the business case was there. It was just shouting at us. We wanted to be able to automate this as swiftly as possible, as effectively as possible, but also give the events team the opportunity to focus on the event so that they can provide better support for the community. And we did just that. We're able to use webhooks within Eventbrite to fire off the data to NA10. And there we're able to receive the information, we're able to transform it, and we're able to map it to send it across to Salesforce. The nodes were already available, and once in Salesforce, we're able to have a look at how we can support the community. We were able to bring them onto Marketing Cloud, so email journeys across, and everything else that the charity does on its business, on its operations. This was a great success for us. In fact, so much so that we are currently speaking with the events team to be able to standardize the integration from Eventbrite. So any particular events that we have going on in the future, to have a template setting with a default way of integrating it to NA10 so that everything comes into Salesforce as a unique campaign or a unique event going forward. And also to touch back on that particular event that we've done for the Twilight Walk, it was a highly collaborative event. So it was a IT team, it was a Salesforce team, it was the events team. We also got to work with the Marketing Cloud team and a number of other groups and individuals within the charity to make this a reality. It was a quick turnaround. It was a very effective turnaround. It enabled people to see how successful integration could be done. That was the initial and first project that we used for with NA10. Secondary one, and now this, what we see over here, the Brain Tumour Charity proposed that we should have a national brain tumor strategy. And for that, we've had a petition with the hashtag that it's a no-brainer to have to improve the brain tumor care across the UK. And we were able to have a petition, and a lot of people signed up. And the reason for that is within the UK, every day, 34 people are diagnosed with brain tumors. We wanted to raise the awareness. We wanted to be able to provide better support for these people. So the way to do that, our wonderful policy team within the charity, they came up with this petition approach to be able to get those signatures with a open letter to be able to hand over to the local ministers of parliament, so people who look after the healthcare within the UK, to be able to hand that over to them and say, look, there is a gap in brain tumor care. This is what you need to do. So let's talk about the infrastructure. So Impact Stack was the tool that we use. It's an embedded system within our website. People had the opportunity, the community had the opportunity to be able to go onto our website, fill in the details and said, yes, we support the National Brain Tumor Strategy. We had the signatures, contact details, and again, it fired across to NA10 via webhook. We received it, transformed it, mapped it across to Salesforce, And when we received the data, we're able to communicate back with our community immediately. We didn't have to download the data. We didn't have to wait for weeks to be able to download the CSV, tidy it up, and then manually load it into Salesforce. Whenever people signed up on Impact Stack on our website, we were able to push that data to Salesforce with the help of N8N to be able to take those meaningful actions. Now, our targets weren't very high for this. We were thinking about 10,000 would be great over the course of a month. We had this launch on a Saturday morning. I was the first person to sign it because I enabled it, signed it. And then over the weekend, we had about 20,000 signatures. So N8N's backend infrastructure dealt with this on an Amazon instance. It worked really well. And over the course of about 2-3 weeks, we were able to get 52,000 signatures supporting a national brain tumor strategy. So this has allowed us to make an impact. And as a UK-based charity, we focus globally, but this has enabled us to highlight some of the concerns that we have in brain tumor care. It was a wonderful opportunity to have such a tool. We're able to better communicate with our charity. We're able to support our community better, but also the marketing teams were able to get involved so that we can use the social media sites to be able to gather these signatures. So there was quite a few different technologies at play here, but N8N was the key tool in the middle that orchestrated the transmission and the transformation and the loading of that data to such tools. It was a great success. And so what's next? As a team, as a growing IT team, Salesforce team, technical team, we have more confidence in delivering such automation-based projects. We are having to collaborate due to the success of these projects with the other departments to deliver further projects. And it is all based on our impact. So we are a community-first charity, and everything that we do should impact the charity. So since these 2 particular projects, we've been able to use N8N further for Acuity, which is again a scheduling tool that enables a benefits clinic system to help people who are again impacted by brain tumors to speak to professionals on what sort of benefits they will be able to claim that they are entitled to. We use a third-party volunteer management tool. We also get the data from that to N8N via API calls. And again, we push that data back and forth to Salesforce with marketing preferences, everything else. And also our recruitment is like, N8N is pretty much touching everything that we have currently. Our recruitment tool, N8N sits at the middle of that, where someone applies for a job at the Brain Tumour Charity. And if they are successful, we are then able to alert our talent department, people and culture department, so the human resources department, to let them know that they will be continuing with the job. And it just makes things so much smoother. We're a small size charity aiming to do big things. And N8N has been key in that, in delivering on bigger impact. So we are really happy with how things are going with N8N, so much so that we are getting interest from other digital teams. So people who work with websites or people who are dealing with projects on what they could use N8N for, with the readily made available nodes, with the training that's already available, with the support from the community to be able to deliver more. It's one of the best technologies that I've had the opportunity to be involved with for the past at least couple of years. So yeah, big fan. Any questions?
As we see if there's any questions that came in, I'm going to switch to, we've got a slide for that as well on our side. So I'm just going to switch. But Ibrahim, thank you so much for this talk. For me personally, I think it's always exciting to see when N8N, saves people time, because that's the precious thing that we all have. I think it's particularly rewarding to see when it's helping people save time, and there's those people spending that time to do good, right? Because then it kind of helps them scale that impact. And I can only imagine how draining it would be to have to, spend 8 minutes per ticket and move that over, even though you're definitely going to do that. These are donations. There's people that like to help out. But how now that time can be spent on far more useful things that humans particularly are good at. So let's see if there's any questions that came in. I'm gonna quickly refresh here. One question I do have, actually, Ibrahim, from my side, would be how did when you're picking an automation tool, I assume there's other products on the market, there's also Python scripts and whatnot. What made you choose N8N as your solution, as this kind of automation brain for your organization?
So we came from a position of, like I alluded to earlier on, automate or integrate with any way necessary, any way that was possible. But like we work with Salesforce, that's our CRM solution. So we could have gone the MuleSoft way or had a look at something like Zapier. But the fact that N8N was source available and it had that community backing behind it, I could just fire up in via Docker in a virtual machine to be able to put that proof of concept together, to be able to query such different data sources. And it was very easy. It was very swift to be able to onboard, but also showcase it to my team, showcase it to the IT team, and showcase it to the Salesforce team, so that people who will be able to pick up the challenges and be able to address it. And it was a great success. And once we got to that stage that this works, it wasn't, we had no other questions. We didn't want to explore MuleSoft. We didn't want to explore Zapier. And yeah, we've been with N8N since.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing. I'm sure everyone at Team N8N particularly appreciates hearing how much you appreciate our product. So next presentation that we have, and again, if you have any questions for Ibrahim, please do post in the chat. We'll be accruing them for the end here. But it's my pleasure to introduce our next guests. And this is from the UN OCHA. And the talk is on automating data quality assurance process for the UN OCHA's Humanitarian Data Exchange. So the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs supports humanitarian organizations to respond effectively to the needs of people caught in crises, to understand and analyze their needs, and to mobilize international assistance. They provide tools and services to help humanitarian organizations ensure that no one affected by a crisis is left behind today. And today they're going to show how N8N helps them with quality assurance of data that's collected in the field. So I think it's a particularly interesting use case. I'm really excited for this one. And I'm just going to do a quick check with Alex, if you're ready to present.
Yes, I hope you can hear me well, and I'll just try to share my screen if that's okay.
Yes, fantastic. So Alex Gartner is a software engineer for the Humanitarian Data Exchange. He's part of the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. And he's based in Bucharest, Romania. And he's going to take it away and show us how they've been using N8N to help with some of the problems that they've been having. Alex, take it away.
Thank you so much for the nice introduction, Max. And thank you so much for having us here today. As was already mentioned, we're going to discuss about how we used N8N in OCHA's Humanitarian Data Exchange platform and how we used it to automate quality assurance. Yeah, just quickly to go through the introduction, I'm Alex and I'm a software engineer, and my colleague Yumi Endo, she was here in the chat, maybe you've seen her. Unfortunately, she couldn't stay, so I'm going to do the entire presentation today. Just a couple of words about OCHA's Center for Humanitarian Data. So the center focuses on increasing the use and the impact of data in the humanitarian sector. There are a couple of work streams that the center is focused on, like data science, data responsibility, data literacy. But today I'm going to focus on the data services work stream, and more specifically the Humanitarian Data Exchange, or HDX in short, which is an open platform. The idea is for the humanitarian community to be able to share data and to access data in crisis. And the idea is to be able to easily find, use, analyze the data that is distributed via HDX. To note that HDX is not the source of the data, we are like a data hub. And also, so HDX is kind of positioned between data contributors and data consumers. And it's based on CCAN, which is an open source tool. It's a general data management system for sharing data. And here at the end of the slide, you can see the URL to HDX if anybody's interested to look. Just to give a bit of context, these are kind of like the types of data that are being shared on HDX. So it's data about a context of a crisis. So here can be information on like populations of country or health facilities in a country, education facilities. Then data about the people that are affected. And here can be information on like refugees or internally displaced persons. And also, and the third type is data about the humanitarian response. And this is data like 3W, that's how we call it, like who is doing what where, like what organizations are doing what in what specific sectors and in what locations. Or yeah, another example is financial tracking data. And to just give an example of how a data set looks like on HDX, here we have like Nepal health facilities. Maybe first thing to say here is that on HDX, data that is published in units called datasets. And so Nepal health facilities is what we call dataset. And a dataset has resources. And resource can be geospatial data, like in this case. It can also be like tabular data, which will be in the next example, I think. And the idea is to be as machine readable as possible, this data, or to be for users to be able to use them in data analysis, like maybe scripts or Excel, Power BI, ArcGIS, whatever they're going to use. But besides the resources, the data set has a lot of other fields like title, description, and so on. And all these fields and the resources are things that are being checked in this QA process that I'm going to talk more about in the next slides. So each of these fields needs to be checked to see that it actually matches with the rest of the data set. This is just another example. In the interest of time, I will skip over it. This is internally displaced persons, but here you can see that the resources are spreadsheets in this case. And yeah, this is another example for 3W data. Okay, so now to the actual problem that we're trying to solve, which is quality assurance. What are the main objectives? First and foremost is to prevent sensitive data from appearing and being shared on the platform, to avoid personally identifying information like name, email, phone numbers, and so on to be shared. Secondly, as I mentioned, for the metadata to be accurate, so that title description actually match what's in the resources. To make sure of things like no broken links. And here maybe I should say that resources are of two types in HDX. They can be uploaded directly to HDX, and then broken links is not really an issue, but they can be also external, just point to external systems. And then it makes sense to check for these broken links. And as I quickly mentioned before, we're interested in specific formats that are easy to process. And lastly, the whole idea is to decrease the time spent in this QA process. So we have a team of QA officers that deals with this, and we try to make this process as efficient as possible. Okay, Now to the solution. Like, we actually started with a custom-made solution, but it wasn't easy enough to use. So we wanted to have a more robust solution to achieve this. So what was decided was that we are going to use Jira for this. So every change, every data or metadata change will be transformed into Jira tickets, tasks, or subtasks. How this happens is that every change is actually transformed into events that go on something like an event bus, and these events then needed to be somehow processed to be transformed into tickets. And for this, we needed a solution that can talk to Redis, because that's where the events actually live. They needed to talk to Google Spreadsheets, because we have some fairly complex Google Spreadsheets with the availability of the QA officers, their time zone, their vacation times, and so on. And to Slack, so that we can get feedback on Slack on how the updates are going. And also, again, to HTX to get more data for the tickets. And I'll just quickly cover it. I mean, this is just a Jira board of how it looks now. And this is maybe a bit more interesting. This is a Jira task example. This corresponds one-to-one to a data set that was modified or created on HTX. And each of the subtasks that you can see are fields from the data set that have been modified. And each of these fields is a subtask that then a QA officer can look at and say if this is okay or not. And this is how a subtask looks, just very quickly. It contains the initial value, then the modified, and then the modified value, like you can see here maybe. But then if before the time that this task is completed, more changes come, they will appear as comments, for example. So why did we decide to choose NA10 for this, and why we realized that NA10 is a good fit? First of all, it's a no-code, low-code solution, and that would allow people that are maybe less technical in the team to have an input on this. Also, there are other teams in the center that create pipelines, and we wanted to provide an example for them so that maybe they will use NA10 in their own projects they have. The visual representation of the logic was actually very helpful in many ways, especially in presenting to other people and explaining what's going on. And we had very good feedback from both technical and non-technical people on how easily they understood what's happening. The visual execution results, of course, are super helpful when you see the data coming in, going out, and so on. And as I think I've already mentioned, the easy integration with other services was really nice to have. Yeah, and now to get a bit more into the weeds, this is how our main workflow looks. It looks a bit complex, but you don't need to squint to understand what's happening. I'll zoom in on the important parts. Don't worry. I'll just say that it starts all via webhook, and I will say a bit later how the webhook is called. But just to say 2 words about the beginning, this column deals with merging the events together. So there are many events here that come for a single data set, many changes for a single data set. Some of these changes are maybe no longer needed because they were superseded by other changes. For example, if a description was changed multiple times in the span of a short period of time, then we can just drop the changes. Also, in cases where we have lists that were modified a couple of times, we are only interested in the final result. So here's where all that happens. And then in the next column here is where we actually prepare the content for Jira, all the rich text formatting and lists and populating the fields. And then the rest deals with actually creating the tickets. And as I said, I'm just going to zoom in on a couple of them. This is the Jira creation part, where we create the parent task, the task that corresponds to a data set. First, we get the schedule of QA officer, like who is available to actually deal as fast as possible with this ticket. Then we keep a bit of state in Redis so that we don't assign all the time to the same officer. And then we just create the data set, sorry, the tickets corresponding to the data set. There's also a wait node because we have to be careful with not hitting Jira too often because there's a limit. And this part deals with actually creating the subtasks. The lower part below here deals with either creating a new subtask, or if there is already a subtask created for that specific data set and field that was not yet solved, then just comments are being added to the existing subtask. And here also we show that the parent ticket needs to be updated. For example, if the title of the dataset has changed, then we need to change the parent ticket as well. And here the top part is also in the interest of making life easier for QA officer. If the dataset was deleted, then it no longer needs to be checked. So we just mark the ticket as failed. Okay, and now there are a couple of special considerations that are more specific to our use case, and I thought it might be interesting to bring them up. They are, I mean, we are surely not N8N experts, so the solutions that we came up with might not be the best ones, so I'm really curious on feedback on this. For the main workflow that I already showed, there's a constraint that there shouldn't be several executions running in parallel, because then it could create several Jira tickets at the same time, for example, for the same data set, which is not what we want. On the other hand, we have 3 production N8N instances, so they might actually run in parallel. So we came up with a locking mechanism based on Redis, so it doesn't happen. The second one is we don't have direct access to production. This is just one of the rules of the organization. Nobody has direct access, so we cannot actually access the UI. But what we found useful was that we have a Jenkins job that exports the data execution, and then we can have all the outputs of each node in a JSON, and that's actually very helpful. And third, about testing, we went with having some mock nodes that simulate the communication with the external services, like communicating with Google Spreadsheets or with Jira. And we have a Python script that replaces the real nodes with the mocked nodes. And then we run the execution via command line in GitHub Actions. And then we look at the output and check that it's what we expect it to be. Like the output is what we expect it to be. The batch operations run the number of times that we are thinking that it should, and so on. Yeah, this is the start workflow. This is the workflow that basically triggers the main workflow. And here is the lock that I was talking about. The first thing it does, it gets a lock on Redis. Then it does a couple of other things, like grouping the events by data set, so that when it gives the data to the main workflow, they are all events that pertain to a specific data set. And it also makes sure that the data is sorted in by the event time. And then at the end, of course, it releases the lock. And we can see that it also notifies on Slack if it didn't manage to acquire the lock. This is your workflow. I'm in the interest of time, so I think I'm going to skip over it. There's nothing that interesting here, just that if an error happens and the lock was held, it releases the lock. And this is just a screenshot of the mocked nodes where we mocked the nodes like, as I said, the one that communicate with Jira or Google Spreadsheet. Yeah, so all in all, NA10 brought a lot of advantages that I already went over. For our specific use case, what would be a nice to have to help us would be a view-only role for NA10. And that's just because we're not allowed to make changes directly on production. So if we would have a view-only role, then we would actually get access to the UI, which we don't. And second is just because we have so much JavaScript code in the workflow, some additional feature related to JS nodes, especially maybe there is and we just didn't realize. Features related to reusing JavaScript code, like reusing functions, that would have been helpful. And yeah, conclusions. So basically, it was a success. It really helped our QA team to have this new process. Everybody understood how it's working because it was easy to explain. There's a clear decrease in time needed to finish tasks. Easier to assign tasks to people than we had before. Easier management, and also very important, there's a history of how each task was solved, which was very helpful for them because they can look back if they're not sure about a specific case, they can look back in history. And also what everybody was saying that was involved in this process is that now they have a better overview of the changes that happen, the data changes that happen on HDX. And yeah, this is just to show that the median time before was around 8 hours, and now the median time is around 4 hours 49. And if we're looking just at weekdays, that also decreases. And if we look at weekdays and inside office hours, that's even better. Thank you so much. And sorry it took a bit longer to go through the slides, but if there are any questions, please let me know.
No apologies needed. Thank you so much, Alex. It's, I think, really interesting also when seeing, larger organizations that have constraints and compliance and whatnot, how they're applying NN in a world where there's some fixed rules and some things to deal with. Very interesting. So thank you very much for that. We've got a few different questions accrued from the different chats. In the interest of time, I'll just start with the first question to get through all of them. So we won't do it by chunks. So if I could ask all the speakers to please stay until the end here, it's about 7 more minutes. But thank you again, Alex, and thank you again also, Ibrahim, for both of your chats. Product updates, it's obviously interesting to understand what's happening at Team NN, but I think, again, we're always so excited to understand what you guys are doing with the tool that we're building. So the first question that we have is for Julio. It comes from Felix. And the question is, I prefer using data only from the last node because using data from earlier nodes gets messy quickly. The main issue is that it's unclear which expressions need updating in which nodes when making changes to earlier nodes. Is there something planned on making it clear when nodes get edited that there are other nodes directly affected? Julio.
Felix, do you want to provide more context for this? No, okay, I can answer. Anyway, at the moment, we don't have anything planned about that. But of course, we always listen to the community. So if this is something that is coming from the community, we can probably take care of that. One thing I like to mention is also that if the modification to a previous node is just changing the name of the node, this doesn't affect the functionality of the workflow. So if you rename one of the previous nodes and you're using data from that nodes in one expression down the chain, this is not going to break anything if you just change the name. Of course, you can break something if you really change the logic of the workflow, and maybe the previous node is handling different data, then in that case, something could break. We don't have anything planned to deal with that at the moment, but thanks for bringing this up. Maybe we could consider for future developments. And feel free to get in touch with me, Felix, via email or on the community. You find me on the community if you want to add more details to that.
Thanks a lot, Julia, for that. We'll move on to our next question. This comes from Alexander. I believe this is still for you, Julia. I recently learned how to automatically install NPM packages in a Docker environment without a custom image using initn and the initn init node. Is there now a feature to easily install NPM packages? I have found at least one table installed packages that seems to indicate this.
The quick answer is no, at the moment it's not. This is actually something we've been discussing internally. And thanks for sharing the workflow. I downloaded the workflow and had a look, and that's very interesting way. I didn't even know it was possible to kind of load NPM packages that way. Thanks for sharing that. And we've been discussing this especially because I raised the question on the community asking for what are the most needed feature for the code node, and the number one request was to be able to use other packages. But there are some security concerns that we have, so it is very difficult to allow to load any NPM package there, because there are some, we have to be more strict for security reasons. But we've been discussing it internally. And so let's see, maybe since we are now working on overhauling the code node, we are still kind of open and evaluating some opportunities there to make it easier to load NPM packages. The table that you're referring to is probably the list of packages that are already used by the application. And we are also considering if allowing to use those packages, but we are not sure about that, because in any case, it's a limited set of packages, and what we hear from the community is that they would like to use any package they might need. So TLDR is stay tuned, check the new stuff coming from the code node, check the conversations on the community, and let's see if we can come up with easier solutions for that.
Thanks a lot, Julia, for providing a little context there. Appreciate that. Move on to our next question. So we've got a question from Jim for Ibrahim. I've seen a lot of charities picking up AI for various things you mentioned. Are there any plans to extend your current end-to-end workflows to use more AI in the future? Great question.
Thank you. I tried to answer the question in the chat. I don't know if I was going to be able to stick around for much longer. But I mean, to put it briefly, we're a charity, so we do hold quite a lot of sensitive data, as well as our community. We have data around our people who are impacted by brain tumors and health-related data. So we need to ensure that we are able to, use solutions that go through a very diligent process, or is air-gapped as much as possible. Data protection is key with all of that aspect. And the same applies with AI. And we would love to have AI tools and the technology and the skill set within the charities to be able to build a business case to make use of, to extend tools such as N8N. But we're very accountable to our expenditure, but we do have wonderful people who want to volunteer their time and their skill set to the charity. So going forward, if we were to have the opportunity to discuss such solutions, absolutely, we can definitely take that as a consideration. AI has also been, people may not like this answer, AI has also been a bit of a buzzword that's been going around quite heavily. And like working in the IT role, we get to collaborate quite heavily with loads of people within the charity, external to the charity, within the community. And I need a business case for the usage of AI and its viability. So if that was potentially there, and if we're able to have a solution that, again, ticks the data protection, the cost and the usage and the simplicity with a business case, absolutely. Hopefully that answers it.
Fantastic. Thank you for that answer. And Ibrahim, we've got some very exciting things happening at EditN with basically self-hosting and air-gapped AI and that sort of thing. I think it's too early to share right now, but I'd be happy to pick up that conversation with you. I think there's some interesting potential there. So at the moment, we're officially at time. So we'll just check if we have any other questions to answer quickly. Nope, we don't. So firstly, thank you everyone for your time today. I know it's Friday after hours. I hope you enjoyed the sessions as much as I did today. Our next Hangout is in the, it's probably not on the 18th of June, I would imagine. So we will post a correction to that. Luis, if you happen to know already, please let me know. Otherwise, we'll be posting all of the correct information on nitn.io/community/events. So go to that website, bookmark it, check it. That's when you know when our events are going to be in the future. But I know we're going to be hosting one soon enough. And we'll have some more exciting speakers for you and some more updates from the team on what we're working on. If you have any follow-ups on product ideas or anything that you've been talking with Julio, the community forums is the best place to have those conversations. That's community.nitn.io. My name's Max, and thank you so much for joining. We're going to stop recording. This is officially over. We're going to hang out for a few minutes, and feel free to have a bit of a chat with us informally if you'd like, so you can unmute microphone and have more of a free conversation as we formally wrap up the community hangout itself. So thank you, everyone. Until next time.